You are listening to the CittaCalcioUsa show, the only news and podcast in English about AS Cittadella. Hello everyone, welcome back to the CittaCalcioUsa show, episode number 155, coming to you for the last time in 2024 on Monday, December 30th. Yes, this is the last episode of 2024. In fact, if you're listening to this, you are probably already in the year of 2025. But regardless of that, Cittadella ending on a great note, ending in this really difficult year in 2024. They end with a great note, 3 straight wins, and are currently sitting outside the relegation zone. Yes, it wasn't long ago before the Granata were sitting bottom of Serie B, and we were having doubts about the season. Now, how things have changed just not too long ago. So, last time I spoke, they played against Südtirol. They got a 2-1 win in Bolzano on Boxing Day, and then wrapping up the year, a 2-1 win at the Tombolato, back-to-back Tombolato wins against Palermo, 2 wins to ignite the season. So lots has happened in this past week since I last talked. So we're going to get into this episode right now. Before we start, don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, CittaCalcioUsa, and CittaCalcioUsa.com. You could find all our stuff there. We have amazing articles, all that stuff on there. So please check it out, CittaCalcioUsa.com. How things can change in just 3 weeks. So if you recall, 3 weeks ago, we were sitting here after a 5-0 defeat in La Spezia against Spezia, tied for the heaviest defeat in Cittadella history, losing 5-0. And if you remember, just a few months ago, they had lost 6-1 against Sassuolo, which was the record defeat, but this had tied the record defeat as well, losing by 5 goals. They were sitting bottom of Serie B Cittadella and had come off once again their worst start to a league campaign, at least in Serie B history, and at least in professional club history from what all the data we could find, with just 14 points after match day 17 after that. So it was looking really dire for Cittadella, and we were asking the question, is the wheels coming off? Is, the favola, the fairy tale of Cittadella, is this just going to collapse right now, and we're just going to have to restart in Serie C? That might be the best thing for the club, and, they were giving off lots of signs that this is, not going to be their year. Yet, 3 weeks later, here we are in a completely different situation. Cittadella not getting 1, not getting 2, but 3 victories on the bounce. Probably I think they are the best team, or the team in Serie B that enjoyed their Christmas, because what a Christmas that was for Cittadella, and going into the holiday, going into this new year. Obviously, the Granata sit 15th in the league with 23 points, 3 points above the relegation play-out, with Sampdoria and Frosinone occupying those spots, and 6 points away from the bottom place, which occupies is Cosenza right now with 17 points. How did this happen? How did Cittadella get to this point in really not only 3 weeks, you could say 2 weeks, because 2 weeks ago they were tying 0-0 against Cremonese at home. Decent result. They played decently, Cittadella, yet they were still finishing the day, still finishing the weekend, still in last place. Yet 2 weeks later, here we are, Cittadella in 15th. How did we get here? Well, if you recall, the last episode, we were talking about Cittadella finally getting a home win, and that ended a 16 home match winless streak and getting the win against Reggiana 3-1. That kind of brought in a little bit of belief, and there was still a lot to work to do. Cittadella going to Bolzano on Boxing Day. This was one of the most supported away trips of the season. Over 300 Cittadella fans making the trip up to Bolzano on Boxing Day. So they were in full numbers, full voice. And Cittadella, after going 1-0 down inside the opening 10 minutes, they respond from Casolari's goal in the 45th minute right before halftime, and then Luca Pandolfi scoring his 5th goal of the season, correct? Yes, I believe that is his 5th goal of the season in the 80th minute to really get the first time Cittadella has come back to win a game this season. And this was a very open match, much more than I anticipated, because these last meetings, especially in Bolzano, they've been very tight. They've been very, both teams kind of playing, conservatively, not wanting to give up many chances, very physical. I thought this was just going to be a very gritty game. Cittadella probably going to escape here with a goalless draw again, or a 1-1 draw, which would have been a decent result. Remember, a lot has changed in this past week, but at the time, Cittadella and Südtirol were occupying the relegation zone, and this was an early 6-pointer. Yes, we are only in December, but this was definitely, it had a feel to it that this was going to be a really important match that we're going to look back on in May and say, yeah, that was the moment where our season changed. Now, Cittadella once again showed this comeback mentality that really hasn't been seen this season. A lot of times this season, in fact, really every time we've seen Cittadella concede the goal, especially in the early on. And, I think if this happened in October or maybe even November, Cittadella would have folded and they would have lost this game 2-3-0. But to have the courage to come back, to be able to, fight back. Castrati made a big save in the first half. I think that contributed to a lot. But in this game, they had a lot of chances. And in the second half, I think they were the better team. And I'm not just saying that because, this is a Cittadella podcaster and whatnot. I genuinely thought that they had a chance in this. I was actually thinking at halftime, they have a chance to win this, and I think they should go for the win. Yes, a draw would have been probably a good result. Not saying that you're not losing, you're not losing any position off a relegation rival. Yet there was this sense that if Cittadella could get one good look, one good opportunity, if they could get one goal, or really if Südtirol scored, I think whoever scored that in that second half was going to win the game, and Cittadella ended up doing that. But I'm actually, once again, I've been keeping track of Cittadella scoring first. What's their record when they concede first? What's their record when they, when they concede? Going into that match, Cittadella were 0-1-8 when they conceded the first goal. That one draw is counting the Pisa result. Yes, it is on paper a 3-0 defeat. However, just for these stats stake and, just for easier comprehensive, and I think it really didn't make a huge difference. I'm talking from a Cittadella perspective, but really we're going to have to look at this from, really what I see is, a fair assessment. But Cittadella entering that game, they were 0-1-8 when they conceded the first goal. That means they had never won when conceding. They had only gone one draw, which came all the way back in August against Pisa, and then they had lost 8 games since then when they conceded the first goal. But this all changed. Casolari scoring an odd goal. I thought it was a shot. Was it a cross? He won't care because he scored his first professional goal. And then Pandolfi in the 80th minute from across from, Massangelo. Sorry about that. From Massangelo, heading it into the far post. Another kind of weird goal. It was a looping header kind of into the side netting. Massangelo coming up huge in the game against Palermo, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But that win was really something that, wow, Cittadella is alive, Cittadella is here, and they really have a chance to finish this 2024. Like I said, a very difficult 2024. We'll get into the stats in a little bit, but a very difficult 2024. They could end it positively, and I said before the Reggiana match, if Cittadella can end these 3 games without defeat, if they could get 3 draws, if they get 1 win, 2 draws, 2 wins, 1 draw, that would be great. But they ended up getting 3 straight victories, which really changes the complete complexion of what we were thinking about this season. Yes, I still think they need some reinforcements in the transfer market, which is going to be huge upcoming in January. But just given this, I think is, a fantastic way to enter the new year. And really, Pandolfi, I want to say that was probably the most important goal for Cittadella he has scored so far. Yes, he scored at the Barbera to give Cittadella 2 wins, one last year, one this year. Yes, he scored in these big games against Sampdoria, against Palermo at the Tombolato last season. He scored in, many other occasions. However, I think just the context of this game and the importance of this game, come the end of the season, we could be looking back at this moment saying, this was the game where Cittadella really started to come alive and will eventually possibly being saved for another year in Serie B. And Pandolfi, that was huge goal. Probably one of his most important goals for Cittadella. However, we'll just have to see what time says. And, time only knows how important that goal is going to be. So that victory led the way to 3 days later on the 29th, yesterday at the time of recording, against Palermo. Palermo was a team that, like I said, they had been struggling going into this game. They had lost 3 straight games, but then bounced back against Bari at the Barbera on Boxing Day. So they had a little bit of, what's it called? A little bit of confidence back after that match against Bari, but still kind of in this up and down season. They beat Spezia, but they lost to Carrarese and Cittadella, although I will say Carrarese is proving everybody wrong right now and are in fact in 8th place, would you believe it? So I don't think we should give them respect when it's due, but you should be expecting, with the amount of resources, amount of talent that Palermo has at its disposal, there definitely been it's been a very disappointing season for Palermo so far. And going into this game, Cittadella had won 3 straight games against Palermo and had not conceded a goal. The 1-0 wins back-to-back at the Barbera, and then a 2-0 win at home to start the year. So they started the year and ended the year with Palermo. But this was another. Before I get into the game, this was another chance for Cittadella, even though on paper it should have been a mismatch. I think this was definitely a chance. I said it before. You could go back and listen that, Cittadella could definitely win this game, and they could definitely end this year undefeated, and that's exactly what they did. I don't know if I expected 3 straight wins, but, that's just how it happened. This game, I thought Cittadella started well. Palermo kind of grew into it as the second half rolled along. Vita scored a very good volley off his right foot going into the corner to give Cittadella the lead in the first half. And then Palermo looked much better in the second half. I think Dionisi switched some things around. Brunori came into the game. D'Alessio, he got sent off initially, but after VAR review, I don't think there was much contact on the penalty, or it was originally a free kick. I don't think there was much contact there, but VAR was called into action, and Pavan was actually another man behind there, so it kind of saved him from D'Alessio being sent off. But nonetheless, Palermo scored off that ensuing free kick. Brunori hit the post actually, and then Lund, the American international, believe it or not, the American scoring against the Americans team. That was kind of strange, but Lund scoring to get Palermo 1-1, and this was another test for Cittadella. For the majority of the second half, I'd say Palermo was definitely probably the better team. They had more opportunities. I think they were more likely to score, especially in the final 15 minutes. They were throwing a lot of men forward. They were getting a lot of opportunities. Their one big chance that came in the 83rd minute, and I think it was Ceccaroni at the far post who couldn't get it on frame. It was just an open goal, and he sent it over the bar, and that was Palermo's chance to win it. And, Cittadella was absorbing a lot of pressure. Yeah, it was Ceccaroni with that opportunity in the final minutes, but Cittadella soaking up a lot of pressure. This was another test mentally and physically how much of this team, how much spirit does this have in this team. And this was a real test for their season. Coming off 2 straight wins, can you manage the storm? Can you get out of here with at least a point, which still would have been a good result if you look at the big picture for Cittadella. So absorbing a lot of pressure, and then Eduardo Mastrangelo. What a time to get your first goal for Cittadella. Cutting into the box, right-footed shot, really threads the needle. If you look at a video from the boards from one of my good friends, Luis Sanon, who is a videographer for Cittadella, he was recording the video, really threads the needle right perfectly between a few Palermo defenders and right through the legs of Simone Rabi, who kind of jumps out of the way and I think blocked the view of Desplanes. I think that's how you say his name. The Palermo goalkeeper, I think blocked the view, and that's what led to Mastrangelo hitting the post and in. And the eruption the stadium had. Remember, I'm watching this from TV. I'm not at the stadium, but I could definitely hear the fans. I could hear the Rabatai. I could hear the Tribuna Stampa, the press box. So I could hear the fans on that side. I could hear the fans on the other. I could hear the Settori Ospiti with the Palermo fans, the Palermo section. Maybe someone listening, maybe you could, if you were there, maybe you could explain for yourself. But to me, I think when Mastrangelo scored, I think that was probably the loudest the Tombolato has been in a long, long time. There's been some great moments in the past years for Cittadella at the Tombolato. They've had, packed stadiums, whether that's against Sampdoria, Palermo, in the final against Verona, against Benevento. I think that was probably one of the loudest I've ever heard it, probably since the final against Verona, where Davide Dio scored his brace into the empty goal, or in the first 6 minutes or so in that game. That was probably one of the loudest. Just the eruption and the feeling that Cittadella is gonna get above the relegation zone after all this struggle this year, after all this heartbreak and grinding every day. I think this was just a moment of relief and joy, and you saw it in the players' celebration. They just went absolutely crazy, and just the eruption from the fans. I think that was probably one of the loudest. And towards the end of the season, where the fans on the main stand, they were cheering them on. The Rabatai were in full voice. They were singing, Vinci per noi, magico Citta, or it was fino alla fine magico Citta, something along the words. But if it was more than that little section that was singing that, it was, I'd say, a good amount, 2-3 full sections singing that, at least from what I could tell from the TV. But that was really a huge victory. I can't say that enough. It's much of a understatement for that, because the importance of that. Mastrangelo said after the game, Cittadella, the players with a little more experience, they came together. They had to figure out what was going on, and they everyone had some responsibility to do in these final weeks. And you could now finally see these results coming in, and man, what a way to end the year. It's been a difficult year, which we should get into right now. Cittadella ending this year with 39 games played in Serie B, with 8 wins, 12 draws, and 19 losses. 32 goals scored, 59 goals conceded, minus 27 goal difference, with 36 points in Serie B. It still is, despite this recent success, it still is the worst amount of points anyone has taken in Serie B. Whether that's, actually, I should reword that, because there are some teams below them that had less points, but they are either the ones that got relegated or were promoted. So like Parma, Venezia, they had less points, but obviously they're playing in Serie A, so they're not playing in Serie B anymore. So out of the teams that stayed from last year and to this year, Cittadella was the worst. The next worst was Modena with 44 points, and then Südtirol and Bari sharing with 45 points. So still, these last 3 wins, I don't think is gonna overshadow what has been really a very difficult and challenging, really poor year for Cittadella. There's been a lot of worse moments I could think of. There's been a lot, and it's been quite a remarkable record year. They've set a lot of records, whether that's with the home streak or the 6-1, 5-0 defeat to Spezia and Sassuolo. The 8 straight losses, I think that is another club record. I have to go back because it just seems like there's been a lot of records, unwanted records broken this season. But the 8 straight losses, I was there for the 8th against Pisa. That was, the atmosphere was very tense. And, unfortunately, it kind of spoiled just a little bit. It was just a ripple in the ocean when it comes to that whole experience for my trip to Cittadella, which, speaking of that trip, I have to say it was probably my favorite moment of 2024. Going to that weekend for Cittadella, I had planned it forever. I was just counting the days. It was just going by so slow. Just landing in Italy, going on the train to Cittadella, arriving, seeing the walls for the first time, seeing the Tombolato for the first time. I want to say thank you once again to the club AS Cittadella for organizing some of the activities I had, whether that was going on the field, going in the press conference after, Davide Di Marchi, the communication officer, he was great. Luis Sanon, everyone there, Mauro Michelini, who I was talking to, Massimo Felicetti, and obviously President Gabrielli, who I was lucky enough to meet and speak with him. He was a very, very fine gentleman. So, thank you to everyone who made that trip possible. And I'm already looking forward to the next one. I can't guarantee that I'll be back for this season, but the next season, if Cittadella survive, it's looking more and more likely that Padova is going to be promoted to Serie B from Serie C. They currently have a big lead out in the 3rd tier. So if they are promoted and Cittadella survive, we could very much be seeing a derby for the first time, I think, since the pandemic at Cittadella at the Tombolato, which I will try my best to get to if that happens. There's still a lot of season to go, and like Del Canto said in the post-match conference, that there's still a lot of seasons to go. There's still a lot of games to be played. Now, before that's kind of the 2 games I want to touch upon from the last time I spoke. Cittadella ending the year with 3 straight wins, 4 undefeated if you count that Cremonese draw, which is shaping out to be a good draw. It didn't seem like it because Cittadella were still last place, but after these 3 wins, it's looking like it was a very, very good result for them. But moving into the points by round, remember I keep a track of points by round of Cittadella in their Serie B campaigns. Number 18 here, we have the 2024-2025 season. And at this stage of the season, after 20 games played, Cittadella currently with 23 points. That is 13 points less from where they were last season. Remember, last season they set a record for the most points after 20 games in Serie B with 36, and then we all know what happened there, the 8 straight losses, and that kind of plateaued. From Cittadella's season where they almost got relegated, they survived on the final day against Como 2 seasons ago. They had 22 points at the season. So for all that talk about it being, the worst start in Cittadella's history, for the worst season, worst attack, they have more points. It's only 1 point, but they have more points than what they had in that relegation threatened season 2 seasons ago. But in terms of the red funnel, which we've been talking about last year, it was the green funnel where Cittadella has to stay within the green funnel for a chance at the playoffs. Well, it's all about staying above the red funnel because the red represents relegation, and Cittadella is just slightly above it with 23 points. Obviously, that 3-game winning streak, 9 points, really helps because at 14 points after 17 games, that was the lowest they were at in Serie B after 17 games. But now they are slightly above this red funnel. I'll have to publish this graph because it's a little hard to explain when you don't see it. So I have to get this out somehow. But yeah, let's go into the Serie B standings and results really quick before we conclude this episode. I want to say that on New Year's Day, so on January 1st, we will be having a Speaking Serie B episode with me and Elia. So we'll recap these last 3 match days of Serie B. So stay tuned for that. That's at Wednesday, 7 p.m. European time. So be on the lookout for that. But there was a lot of results that happened these past week. There was 20 games played in Serie B, so I'm not going to cover all of them, but there were some big results on Boxing Day, and the biggest result was probably Pisa defeating Sassuolo 3-1 in Pisa. This was a big game for both clubs, Sassuolo trying to extend their lead, but Pisa really making a statement win, winning 3-1 against Sassuolo at home. Another 6-pointer, a relegation 6-pointer, as well as Südtirol and Cittadella, was Frosinone against Salernitana. Frosinone winning 2-0 against Salernitana, which actually just fired their coach Colantuono. And so Salernitana has a new manager as they sit 18th in Serie B. Another result, let's see. Caradese. We have to talk about Caradese because at the start of the season, we were saying, they were just going to be another Lecco getting promoted for the first time in decades. They are currently 8th place in the playoff spots with 27 points. In these past 2 games, they got a draw against Sampdoria and then a win against Cesena, which puts them 8th place. Could you believe that? I think it's time to start reconsidering our pre-season predictions, but they were guaranteed to be wrong, so we can't really say much about that. Match day 20, this was another match day that had all games being played on the 29th. Surprise result, or I wouldn't say it was a surprise result because I actually predicted Bari to win this. It was a 2-0 win for Bari against Spezia, who fall 3 points behind second place Pisa. So Spezia kind of slowing down a little bit. I think they were just, tired from all these games. It was mentally draining for them. We'll talk to Elia. He'll explain to us better in Speaking Serie B. But losing 2-0 against Spezia and then 1-1 against Mantova, 10-men Mantova on Boxing Day. That puts them 3 points behind Pisa. Wait, if I do my math correctly, it is actually 5 points behind Pisa. I can't do math today for whatever reason, but 5 points behind second place Pisa after 20 games because they had lost against Bari. One team that you kind of have to keep an eye out on because it is Cittadella's next opponent is Cesena. Now, Cesena was flying the last time they played Cittadella on the November 10th. That was just before the November international break. They were flying, and we were saying how, they were definitely going to make playoffs. Well, now they've currently slipped out of the playoffs in 10th place with 25 points. They have really kind of fallen off a cliff, and that's probably because Christian Scipendi, their top leading goal scorer, is out injured, and I think that has really hurted Cesena because they have lost, let's see now, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That is now 5 out of the last 6 games they have lost in Serie B. That only win coming against Cosenza. That was the game that actually Scipendi did get injured. So since then, they have lost 3 games in Serie B to Juve Stabia, Cremonese, and Caradese without scoring a single goal. So it's going to be interesting to see if he is back because there is about a 2-week break before things get going again. So it's going to be interesting to see what that break is going to do for Cesena, but that really plays into the favor of Cittadella, I guess, because, like I said, we'll have to see. If Cittadella and Cesena were playing tomorrow, yeah, I could definitely see Cittadella getting another win. However, 2 weeks break, we'll have to see what happens and if he comes back for that game. But Carrarese, well done to you guys. 2-0 win, moving up to 8th place. Sassuolo coming back against Cosenza. Cosenza going to the bottom of Serie B with 17 points. And Südtirol getting a draw against Modena. Frosinone 1-1 against Juve Stabia. Catanzaro getting a 1-0 win against Salernitana. That was the end for Colantuono. Salernitana finishing the year in 18th place, like I said. So the final standings as we go into the new year is Sassuolo in first, Pisa in second, Spezia third. And then, you got the bottom or the mid-table teams is actually kind of surprising from the fact that we were just talking about a month ago where they were actually in the playoffs, but Cesena, Palermo, both at 25 and 24 points respectively. Palermo is only 4 points above the playout spots, so they have to be careful. And I wonder if Dionisi is still going to be in charge by the next time Palermo play their next game. But Cittadella, sorry, I don't know why I said that weird. They end the year 15th out of the relegation zone by 3 points with 23 points. Below them is 16th Sampdoria, 17th Frosinone with 20 points. And then in the relegation zone to end the year, 18th Salernitana with 18 points, as well as 19th Südtirol, and then 17th place Cosenza with still dealing with that 4-point penalty. Without that, they would be in 21 points with 16th place. So that is the Serie B season. That is it currently going into the new year, going into 2025. One thing I actually want to add is because speaking of Cosenza, if you had watched their game on Boxing Day, it was mental because Catanzaro scored in, late on. Then, Cosenza was playing down a man. And then the 90th plus 16th minute, the latest goal in Serie B regular season history, Cosenza score a penalty after a VAR check. It was madness. I watched kind of the end of it after Cittadella defeated Südtirol. It was madness. And really, I have to see how many late goals Cosenza has scored since being promoted back in the league a few years ago, because this is truly insane. But that was a Boxing Day match, 1-1 against Catanzaro. But Cosenza, the Lupi, are still in last place, 6 points behind Cittadella, who end the year outside the relegation zone. You wouldn't have believed that 2 weeks ago, but here we are. So as I come to an end, I want to just make a programming alert. So we are recording on a Monday, but we'll be taking the rest of the week off, as well as basically most of next week. But we will be back to preview the match against Cesena, upcoming for Cittadella, not next Sunday, but the following Sunday for match day 21. That will be January 12th. That is a 5:15 p.m. kickoff time in Cesena. So we'll be back for that game. But if for now, I want to wish everyone a happy new year. I hope 2025 brings a lot of great things, as well as for Cittadella. Let's try to make this a better year for Cittadella, because I don't think a lot of us want to live through that 2024 year for Cittadella, even though it ended great. Let's hope for a better year for everyone. But yes, Happy New Year. Stay safe out there. We will see you next week. Well, next year, I want to say. That was a bad dad joke. Sorry. But yes, we'll see you next week, previewing the match against Cesena, as well as maybe some Calciomercato news. So we will see. Happy New Year, everyone. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube at CittaCalcioUsa, and visit our website at CittaCalcioUsa.com for more information, news, articles, all that stuff about AS Cittadella. Speaking Serie B is this New Year's Day, 7 p.m. European time, so go check that out on either my channel or Elia's channel. Link is in the description. Thank you for listening throughout 2024. We will see you next week, and yes, like I said, Happy New Year. Stay safe out there, and hopefully 2025 brings us a good one. So thank you, everyone. We will see you next week, and as always, Forza Citta, and Happy New Year. Thank you for listening to the CittaCalcioUsa show. If you liked it, please share and follow us on Instagram and Twitter at CittaCalcioUsa. See you next time, and remember, Forza Citta!